How's it going, everyone? The time is 4:01 p.m., which means it is time for the weather report here on KMNR 89.7 FM, broadcasting out of Rolla, Missouri. This is your one-stop shop for news and commentary about everything going on in the world of politics, Rolla politics, Missouri, and the federal government. And we have a very special episode for you today, as this is the start of our interview series for the next month and a half or so. We're going to be nothing but interviews with local movers and shakers, candidates for local government. So before we get into that, some boilerplate stuff. As always, the views expressed in this program are not those of KMNR, the University of Missouri System, or the University of Missouri Board of Curators. There are opinions and our opinions alone. If you have any comments or questions for our candidate that we have on today, please feel free to text in to 504-656-6735. That's 5046-KMNR-DJ, and we will discuss them on the air if we have time. So, tonight's guest is running for Rolla City Council to represent Ward 6 of the city, and that is the one and only Amelia Markwell.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
Welcome to the show, Amelia. So, why don't you take a minute to introduce yourself? Tell us about who Amelia Markwell is.
Yeah, sure. Hi, my name is Amelia, and I am currently running for Ward 6 City Council here in Rolla, Missouri. I'm a local Missouri S&T student here on campus. I'm a current senior, and I've been campaigning for a few months now. But yeah, I'm actually the only student in the race and the youngest contestant as well, but I'm excited to get the campaign going, so.
And what are you studying?
So I'm currently a pre-med student studying biological sciences. I'm in my senior year, but I will be doing my master's next year, so I'm excited about that.
All right. And now, tell us about Ward 6. So the city is divided into 6 districts or wards, and you're running to be one of the council representatives of Ward 6. So tell us about the geography of that.
Yeah, for sure. So for those of you who don't know, Rolla is divided into 6, and I happen to have the privilege of potentially representing the 6th one, the very last one. But it actually consists of mostly Missouri S&T college students, and so if you live in University Commons, Residential Commons, that's UC and RC, let's see here, Thomas Jefferson Hall, that's TJ, any single fraternity on Frat Row, the Lodges, or Minor Village, you are considered in Ward 6, as well as a few businesses that are south of Bishop, so anything across from that Starbucks there on Bishop, so like Biscotti's Pizza, the Smoothie King, that side would also be considered Ward 6 as well.
Yeah, basically everything north of Bishop Avenue.
Oh, north, did I say something?
Yeah. Yeah, that's the terrain of Ward 6.
Yeah.
So now, a young person, a student running for city government is pretty peculiar. Not the most common thing. So what made you decide to run for city council?
Yeah, so I never really saw myself in local government, but I had been going to more local Rolla political events and just events around the community, and I started meeting people and getting to learn more about the politics here in a small community as opposed to what's going on big scale, and I thought, well, this is something that I could probably get involved in, and so little by little I thought, okay, I could probably get a campaign up and running, and I've had a lot of fun so far. Yeah.
Awesome. So, and we've covered on the show in the past the kinds of scale of things that the city council deals with. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of tremendous changes or pieces of legislation, kind of things that come out of the council. Mm-hmm. But for you, what kind of? I feel like every candidate has what's their kind of top priority?
Sure.
Of
their platform.
Yeah. What's the issue you'd like to most tackle if elected?
Sure, and I don't know if I would consider it a big issue, but I hope to bridge the gap between both the city of Rolla as well as Missouri S&T. And so that, consists of a lot of different things, whether that is student parking or whether that's how students are walking to school, specifically in Ward 6. The roundabout that is past that green bridge up there near Frat Row. I'd like to work with that. But then also I'm passionate about a few other subjects as well within the Rolla community, so...
Yeah, we'll talk. Let's talk about that. Yeah. Being a student first. So, you are pretty young. Probably, if elected, one of the youngest members of the city council ever elected.
Yeah.
I would argue. And you are a university student. So, what would you say to voters who might feel kind of put off by that? Who might say that you're not, quote unquote, a local, and you may not have kind of the city's best interests at heart?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, while I'm not from Rolla, I have lived in Rolla the past 4 years of my life, and I've gotten to know the city and the people of the city pretty well. So being a college student, it's been hard running the campaign while simultaneously being in classes and whatnot, but I hope to bring a fresh perspective to the city council, and hopefully, with my age and stuff, I don't think that should be a huge problem, hopefully, so yeah.
And there are some in the public. I don't think it's a huge group, but there are some who feel like the city has a history of putting the university's interests before its own.
Yeah.
Like in recent meetings, Councilman Shelby from Ward 5 has talked about how a lot of neighborhoods in his ward, which is kind of the southwest of town, have been torn down to make room for the university's expansion.
Yeah.
And so... being in this position that you are you're a student, but you have lived here for a while, and you are kind of more, you don't live in on-campus housing anymore. You're kind of more settled than the average student. What sorts of things can the city do to foster a more productive and positive relationship between the university and the people of Rolla?
Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, I mean, going back to what you had said earlier, I do hear some people going, oh, the university is taking over and whatnot, and I understand why they might feel that way. Missouri S&T has done a lot of construction, probably, as you know, and a lot of expansion within the past few months, or a few years, actually. So I understand that, I do, but they also bring in a lot of cool people, a lot of students and a lot of faculty and a lot of jobs. And so Rolla in itself, we are not necessarily defined by the university, but it plays a big role in who we are as a city, and I think it's important to represent that, so.
Yeah, I think that a lot of the concerns are valid, but, Rolla would not be the town that it is if it were not for a big institution like the university being here. And I think one cool thing you do have going up in Ward 6 is the Protoplex.
Yeah.
The new manufacturing kind of research hub, which it seems like the city is pretty optimistic is going to bring in kind of technological investment into Rolla.
Yeah, it's super cool. I've driven past it a few times, and I don't know if you've seen, but they can actually light up the Missouri S&T sign like different colors. And so every time I drive in my ward, I see sometimes it's green, sometimes it's white, but it seems like they're making really good progress on it. Just even in recent weeks, I've seen how it's changed so much, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're working fast. So I don't know when it will be finished, but I'm really excited to see the final product, and hopefully it can be a good piece of expansion for the university. I mean, they had talked about how there's going to be interviews conducted in there from people that went to the career fair. There's going to be a lot of R&D, and with the new promotion to R1 research for Missouri S&T, I'm excited to see if there will be any labs or anything in there. So, yeah.
Might hopefully bring in some companies that might give some students more of a reason to stay in Rolla.
Exactly. And that was one thing that when I was actually talking to, I believe it was like one of the city planners a few weeks ago, he had mentioned that was one of the primary issues that they were looking at, was students were coming in to get their engineering degree here in Rolla, and then they would graduate in 4 years and go elsewhere, whether that was to Springfield or to St. Louis or etc. And so one thing they were thinking about was, well, what can we do to make sure that they stay around here? I understand there can only be so many engineering firms and whatnot, but there's no reason why we can't have a Boeing plant, or I mean, it doesn't even need to be Boeing, it can be any any sort of company, that students are willing to work for. But I'm sure some of the ones that are participating in the career fair happening on Tuesday would not be opposed to having a location here in Rolla to have students stay here.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of something, an objection people might have is, oh, great, jobs for the tech educated type students. Sure. But I mean, if you have companies coming in and investing in Rolla, they're going to need restaurants and housing and, more, the rest of the city will kind of grow to accommodate that.
Right.
So it'll kind of lift all ships, so to speak, is at least the hope.
Yeah, I think the city is definitely, it's expanding so fast right now. I mean, when I first moved to Rolla, there wasn't even an innovation lab. Havener was pretty small. There wasn't any sort of welcome center. They were working on the roundabout and such. So I've gotten to see it grow like the past 3 or 4 years, and just in that short of time span, it's actually really amazing what they've done. So I can't imagine what it's going to look like in 10 years, but I'm excited to see how the university and the city collaborate on that. Yeah.
We got a question coming in from one of our listeners. Actually sent in a couple. We're backwards. So you had mentioned students walking to school, kind of pedestrian type stuff. Were there any specific traffic improvements you have in mind for improving pedestrian safety?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's actually a few spots, if you go to the roundabout past the bridge, kind of near where Fraternity Row is as you're going to Minor Village, there are a few spots in there that don't have any sidewalks. And I know they don't have any sidewalks because I used to skateboard my sophomore year and I'd have to pick it up and walk it and then get back on it. But I think that's something that definitely, could be put into place. And then also, even just being on the other side of it, not as a pedestrian, but as a driver, when I'm driving at night, if you don't press the button that lights up the sign, as you're doing the cross, I don't see you, and I'm sure a lot of other people probably don't as well. And so making sure that people are seeing the pedestrians walking in, especially if there's students coming from late classes and stuff, that's definitely a priority, since we did have a few incidents last school year of students getting really hurt from crossing the roundabout or whatnot and accidentally getting hit. So
yeah, I know the city's been investing more in crosswalks, or specifically, like, we got a lot of grants from MoDOT for ramps, like ramped curbs and stuff for accessibility. But I think that's all really been centered around like downtown, and there hasn't been any kind of attention paid to the north of town.
Well, if you see around where the Estelk building is, kind of near, what's that place? Oh, Spoon Me. That intersection there, I believe it's on 10th Street. That intersection, that four-way, is where most of the accidents happen.
Oh, that's a
and so
intersection.
It's just, you can't see, as you're coming from one way. That's not necessarily the driver's fault, but also the pedestrians, they don't always press the light. And so it's just very high-risk area for accidents to happen. So,
yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, to those folks tuning in, this is the Weather Report. We're talking with Amelia Markwell, who is running to represent Ward 6 on the Rolla City Council. If you got any questions for Amelia, please text into 504-656-6735. What do I want to talk about next? Let's talk about the center. The center, for those tuning in, is Rolla's Health and Recreation Center. It's in Barwan Park, and it's had something of an embattled history of funding, because it's a pretty expensive building to operate, and it has not had any dedicated tax supporting it in recent years. And so they have been having to take from general revenue to support it, and it's just not something that we can keep going in its current form. And the council recently voted to lease the recreation half of the building to Phelps Health, it'll continue operating as normal, or at least I think it'll be. I'm a member there, and I've been there, and it's been unchanged since Phelps Health took over. But the city is still on the hook for the swimming pool side of it. And so enough money has been allocated to keep the pool open through till August, I believe, meaning that if elected, you will be on the council that decides what to do next for it.
Yeah.
And so there's been talk about putting some kind of tax proposition on the ballot. And so what sorts of things would you want to see from such a proposal for kind of the future of the center.
Sure. So I know a lot of people have strong opinions on this, and I've been to the center, I don't know, maybe a handful of times. I'm not currently a member there, but I will say it's widely known around the Rolla area that we cannot continue to be going at the rate that we're going. It's just not feasible for us to do anything past August. We're running out pretty fast, and so we need to come up with a solution here. And I have trust in the consulting firm that our city has recently hired to solve this problem, and I hope that if I get the opportunity to serve on city council, I'll get to contribute to that a little bit. But something's definitely got to change, and I don't have a solid plan in place, but I do know that I am not in favor of necessarily imposing a tax on the Rolla citizens, especially for those who aren't currently a member. But I am not opposed to putting something perhaps on the ballot for change and letting the people decide what they want to do with that center, whether it should be renovated or torn down and turned into something else, or if it should be open during the summer. Whatever kind of changes we're seeing, I want the people to decide on that. Now, I do think that Phelps Health, them taking over half of the center, I do think that's a really good thing. We're seeing, some seniors come for whether that's silver sneakers and whatnot. I know that it has the potential to have swimming lessons and things like that with the indoor water park and whatnot, but it's just not being used right now, and it's taken up a lot of money. And so I know that people are kind of upset at the fact that it's been having weird hours, and the pool is not as good as it was when it first opened, but people are looking into it, and I trust the firm that we've hired. So yeah.
Okay. So you wouldn't support just passing a tax to keep it operating in its current form?
Yeah.
Has to be some changes made to it.
Correct. I think that if you live here in the Rolla community and you've never been to the center once, and maybe it's not fair for you to be paying a tax, especially if you're not a paying member of the center. However, I do think that if you are living in Rolla, you do have a say in what we should do with the center, whether that's tearing it down and whatnot. And I'm not in favor of tearing it down, but something has got to change, and I think that the Rolla people should decide that. So.
Right on. We have another question from our listener. Asks, where do you see the city council going in the next year? And assuming that since your plans are to move on to med school, what gives you the confidence that Ward 6 can receive the best representation possible? So I guess I would kind of interpret that to mean, there's no med schools in Rolla, obviously, and so you will eventually be moving on elsewhere. So it's kind of speaks to, why I asked about you being a student. You're not going to, in a few years, you're going to be leaving town. And so how can we trust that you're going to be a good representative of the ward in that way?
Sure. I mean, I love Rolla, and Rolla is always going to have a special place in my heart. Since I came here, since I've been living here since I was 18, and if I do leave in the future, which there's no current date set for that or anything like that, but if I do leave in the future, then I want to leave it better than when I first came here. And I hope that students after me, when they come to Rolla, whether it's for the university or they just move down here, I want it to be a place of community where families can thrive and things like that. And so I definitely trust that our city council is going to do the best that they can, and that they have the best interests at heart. So that's a good question. I like that. I currently am in the process of studying to take my MCAT, and so there are no dates set in stone yet of if I'm leaving and whatnot. I still have to go through an entire application cycle and stuff. So yeah, it's been hard managing, to go back to the first part of that question, it's been hard managing the campaign, being a student at the same time. I have classes, and then I come home and I work on the campaign and whatnot, but I do prioritize the campaign as of right now.
I also have kind of to touch on that. So I think something that we've seen with, in general, locally, there's just not a lot of interest in local government. Municipal elections usually have pretty low turnout. And there can, I think, be this atmosphere of inaccessibility among our city officials, where people have problems that they're dealing with that could be solved by city government, but they're really not that's not getting communicated up the chain to the people who can do something about it in the city council and city government. And so do you have any kinds of ideas for making yourself accessible and ensuring that the people of your ward are able to, know who to go to, how to get there, how to keep, I guess, a finger on the pulse of your ward?
Sure. So, I mean, I'm open to emails right now. You can email me at markwell4rolla@gmail.com, and that's with the number 4, not spelled out. But you can feel free to email me with any sort of questions or concerns that are happening, not just within Ward 6, but in the community as a whole, I think that every single current council member, I believe, has a .gov email at the end of their email, so you can access them if you wish to do so. But also, another thing is you can come to the city council meetings. I think a lot of people and students, they don't realize that you can just come in if you have a concern, a genuine concern, and you want to raise that to the board. You can walk into city council meetings. They're usually on Mondays, sometimes on Tuesdays in the evening. But you can come in if you want, and we've seen a lot of community members come in with problems that they want to address, and that's one way that we can be accessible to the public. Another thing, I guess, for students specifically is a lot of students don't realize that they can vote in April. I actually didn't even know until early in my or probably in the middle of my freshman year that you can use your dorm address to register to vote, and that was something that a lot of students didn't realize in the most previous presidential election. And so registering is definitely on my priority list as well when it comes to accessibility.
And the next city council meeting is Tuesday, the 17th,
Yes.
Not Monday because of a holiday. I can't remember.
President's
President's Day.
Yes.
Okay. And that's at 6:30 at City Hall. So I don't think I've actually gotten the agenda for that yet. I always like to give a briefing on what's going on in the meetings here on the show, but I don't think I have that yet. And we'll see if the city website loads. Isn't this fun? That's not what I want.
If you're curious about city council meetings, they're also not only are they live streamed, but they're also posted afterwards, aren't they?
Yeah. The City of Rolla has a YouTube channel that they're streamed on. We do have the agenda for the next city council meeting. Do we see anything fun? Interesting. Some cool looking ordinances, but I'll have to dig into it more. But it looks like they're considering an ordinance relating to the sale of 7-0 and other such drugs. I don't know much about 7-0, but
Interesting.
It's basically an opiate you can buy in a gas station, I think. So,
yeah.
Cool. That's kind of a somewhat segue into a tough question, that of homelessness. So. I'm not going to pretend that Rolla is unique in its homelessness issue, but it does have one. And I know that addressing homelessness can mean different things to different people. So what does addressing homelessness mean to you, and what are some measures that you would support to help with that?
Sure. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely certain areas in the Rolla community where we are seeing some of the homelessness is starting to increase a little bit, and I don't know if I have a set plan in place to address that, but I do know that there are certain companies as well as projects out there that are working to address this. So the Rolla Mission is one big one, and that's one that a lot of people have heard of, and I know that they have been a large influence in helping to make sure that homelessness is reduced here in Rolla. I also think it's important that we communicate with other cities such as Springfield and Columbia and see, well, what are you guys doing to address it? There's no reason why we can't come together as city council and reach out to them and say, okay, what are some measures that you guys are taking that is helping, rather than just, sending them elsewhere or telling them that they can't. I understand the concerns right now that people are saying when it comes to our downtown area and how maybe perhaps they feel unsafe, but I don't know. I think that there's solutions out there for sure, and these are people that deserve to be helped. And whether that is, right there downtown, or if that's near the Walmart or on the roundabout or elsewhere, these people deserve to be helped. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a, I would not be fair for me to be like, how are you going to solve homelessness? Because there are a lot of limitations. I mean, one of the biggest ones is resources. The city budget is
for sure
not a lot of excess in the city budget to deal with much of this.
No, and it's been a problem for some time now, I will admit. But I've been surprised, to be honest, by sometimes the lack of empathy from the local government when it comes to homelessness. You know, there's been ideas and words thrown around about, just, put them on a bus and ship them to St. Louis or something. And that's not the way to solve this problem. That's not how we should be addressing this. But it is something that we definitely, as a local government, should be looking into. And I think incorporating faith-based organizations as well, some of the local churches, putting together organizations that can come together and solve this problem.
That's something that has been talked about. I know Councilman Barrett from Ward 2 kind of campaigned talking about that. And actually was just talking to the mission earlier today about this. And Jefferson City has something similar, kind of a homelessness coalition of bringing together local government and, churches and private groups to coordinate a response. And that's the kind of thing that can be done very cheaply as far as the city is concerned, because you're not starting any new programs. You are getting existing programs in touch with each other and working together more.
Right. These nonprofits are here to help, and so it's only expensive if it's, if you want it to be expensive like that. There's no reason why the local government can't work together with local organizations and come together with our local churches to solve the issue. So
now I know I don't think I've covered it much on the show, but something big that the city has been in talks with recently is about the city's comprehensive plan, which is the sort of
the 10-year plan.
Yeah, 20-year plan, or sort of the framework of, it's meant to guide the city in terms of deciding what do we do with our land, what kinds of zoning ordinances do we approve. And they have recently unveiled their Rolla 2050 plan draft. And I believe you've kind of followed that some, or have learned some about.
Yeah, I went to the unveiling when I forgot when it was, maybe a month or two ago, when they presented it for the first time with the city planners, and I got to meet and introduce myself to the city planners, so that was really cool. But yeah, it was interesting to see the plan.
Was there anything you saw that stood out to you as, this is a good idea, or maybe not, like things that you would not want to see implemented?
Yeah, so I went into it with the concern of, I don't want to see the hospital as well as the university just completely take over, because that is a concern of a lot of people that live in my ward. And I also know that the hospital has a lot of money and a lot of potential to expand, but I also want Rolla to be the community, that we are. So I went in with that mindset, and I saw what expansion plans they had put in place for the next 10 years. I didn't see the 2050 year necessarily, but they did have 10-year plans, and then they would kind of color code each of these plans for whether they wanted to do it within the next year, whether they wanted to address it within the next 5 years, the next 6 years, 7 years, etc. And so I got to see some of the changes that they're hoping to put in, whether that is new buildings downtown or increasing student housing and things like that. I know that when I was talking to the city planner, as I had mentioned earlier, he's looking into kind of, I don't want to call it the retention rate of students, but them staying in the Rolla area and working here and finding careers and starting families and whatnot in our community. And I know that he was thinking that, if we bring in these companies and kind of model our city similar to, something like University City in St. Louis, where Wash U is and whatnot, and put in a few more apartments with restaurants and things like that, that will bring in more people and make our city thrive. So it was cool to see that.
Yeah, a common critique I've heard about development in Rolla is that, especially downtown, is that the kinds of apartments that they're building that are meant to appeal to students, and these are private apartment developments, are not the kinds of apartments that families can use. Like, you have a lot of studio apartments downtown, not a lot of development for bigger families and people who are going to be here long term.
Yeah, and I mean downtown is essentially walking distance from the campus, and so you're going to have students that are living there. But I do think that there is potential for, especially down by Public House, down by the courthouse, there's no reason why we can't have, it doesn't have to be high rises or anything, but apartments there where families can live affordably. So I think that's an important cause for sure. Nice.
Well, hey, it's 4:30. In just a minute, I'm going to play a quick little Science in the Sea. We take a minute break. You're here listening to the Weather Report here on KMNR with MC Stratus, and I'm talking to Amelia Markwell, who is running for City Council of Rolla in Ward 6. Please text in any questions you have to 504-656-6735. That's 5046-KMNR-DJ. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back in just a couple minutes.
Exploring Science in the Sea. For many Native Hawaiians, the centerpiece of just about any New Year's celebration is onaga, a fish that's also known as ruby snapper or longtail red snapper. It's served at everything from weddings to birthdays, but it's especially popular at year-end celebrations, in part because it's a symbol of good fortune. It's prized for its light pink flesh, mild flavor, and its texture, all of which are considered just right for sashimi. Onaga is one of the deep 7 bottom fish, a culturally important group that includes 6 species of snapper and 1 species of grouper. All 7 species are found throughout the Hawaiian Islands. A snapper known as opakapaka is the most common, accounting for about half of the annual catch. Onaga ranks second. Adult onaga generally are about 2 to 2.5 feet long and weigh up to about 18 pounds, although they can grow to twice that weight. The top half of the body is red or pink, while the underside is white. The fish are found above rocky seafloors throughout the tropical Pacific Ocean, usually at depths of no more than 1,000 feet. Commercial fishing decimated many of the bottom fish stocks during the middle of the 20th century. Today, the bottom fish are protected by both state and federal regulations. Commercial fishers are limited to hook and sinker operations, no nets allowed. That's helped the population rebound, ensuring Happy New Year celebrations for years to come. Science in the Sea is a production of the University of Texas Marine Science Institute at Port Aransas. I'm Holly Brawley.
Thanks, Holly. You're still listening to the Weather Report here on KMNR 89.7 FM out of Rolla. And we're still talking with Amelia Markwell about her priorities if elected to the City Council. So, we will dive in and keep going. So something interesting that you had told me about early on in your campaign, about something you would like to implement or look into, is some changes to recycling in Rolla.
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
For sure. So I'm very passionate about that. As somebody from the Pacific Northwest, I see every time I go up there, I see what they're doing to just try to stay green, and I'm like, oh shoot, well, maybe Missouri could try to implement a few of those things. So when I first came to Rolla, I lived in student housing, which was in University Commons, so that would be UC. And you probably know as a student yourself that in the dorms there was recycling. You would take your trash every week to the end of the hallway and sort it out, and they would have, I believe, bins for cans, bins for aluminum, etc., for tin. But then when I moved out of student housing, I still lived in Ward 6, and I went into my apartment complex. I had asked, the front desk, where's the recycling? Because I saved all of these moving boxes and whatnot. It's a bunch of cardboard. Where can I throw them? And they just told me, well, we have a dumpster there in the corner, and you can throw everything in there. And I was just shocked. to be honest. So I definitely want to see something local happen with recycling because I think it's super important, and I think that Rolla is a little bit behind in that regard. At least my ward is in my neighborhood. I can't speak on behalf of those who live in maybe Ward 2 or 3. Maybe there is recycling over there. No, there's not.
No, so Rolla did have curbside recycling, and that got shut down around COVID times, I think.
I heard about that. It was expensive to keep up, I believe. And
it was too expensive, both on the collecting side and then also on the receiving side of having to sort through it and issues of contamination and stuff.
Sure.
But I mean, you're right that like the university has it figured out where
they have it figured out. Yeah, and so does even the frats do too, because I believe they have large garbage bins behind each house, and they have one for trash and one for recycling, and so why can't residents have that as well?
So you would support looking into some kind of means of getting recycling more accessible.
Yeah, looking into some kind of solution. I have talked to, in previous Mineramas and Springoramas and whatnot, I have talked to the Eco Miners. I don't know if you're familiar with them, but they're a group on campus who try to keep our campus green and stuff. And I had talked to them about the fact that my apartment doesn't have recycling or compost for that matter. And they said, well, you can always take your recycling to the recycling center. And so that is a solution, but let's be realistic. How many people are actually going to make that drive?
It's a pain.
It's not feasible, but it does pain me every time I have, a shipment come in and there's a bunch of cardboard boxes, or if there's milk jugs and whatnot, it all goes to the trash. And that's a little bit concerning. So,
yeah, we had a listener send in some thoughts about that. Says bring in number 5 plastic recycling.
Number 5 plastic. I'm not even at that step yet when it comes to number 5. How about just any sort of recycling?
Yeah,
but yeah,
because they take 1 and 2, but they do not take type 5.
Interesting.
I can't even remember what type 5 plastic is.
I believe is that
polypropylene.
Yeah.
Used in yogurt cups, margarine tubs, water bottle caps, straws. So one of the more kind of general kinds, but I think it's that like harder plastic. Neat.
Sure. Yeah, everybody's always so concerned with the straws and saving the turtles and whatnot. And I guess I get, wanting to get the reusable straws and stuff. But I'm just thinking, what about plastic bags? I feel like we use a lot more plastic bags than we do straws. When I go to the Walmart and whatnot, that's at least 3 or 4 bags versus you go to, a drink place and you get some coffee. That's 1 straw. And so, yeah, it's interesting. The last time I was on the West Coast, I was doing some shopping in Vancouver, Canada, and I was just in a regular mall going from store to store. But one thing that they've implemented up there is they don't give out bags anymore. And that was just a regular mall. And I was kind of in this sort of like American shock, how come I have to carry my things around? It's so weird. But they would sell it to you for either, I believe it was like 50 cents or $1 or something like that. Or you could, just bring a reusable bag. And so I noticed that even in the Target and whatnot, people are bringing reusable bags around. And I'm not saying that's the solution for Rolla by any means, but what I am saying
I don't know
is
if a bag ban would go over well.
Right. I don't think that's necessarily the solution, but I will say that other cities have started implementing things, and so I think the least that we can do is get some recycling for our residents.
Yeah. Couple other notes from listeners. Recycling. Someone notes that there is at least one private company that does do curbside recycling.
Okay.
To kind of fill that gap. It's like a monthly subscription sort of thing.
I wonder if that's for any ward or just...
Yeah, I think I would imagine
I'll
so.
have to look into that.
And then back to our sort of housing discussion. Our listener notes there's not enough real estate for compact housing, which makes sense, especially downtown. Though you do know that there's land kind of by that courthouse area. And then there's a 3-story zoning limit for fire codes, which I knew there was a height limit for buildings. I didn't know that it was a fire code thing. But that could be kind of an avenue of exploration, is why do we have this height limit on buildings?
Sure.
And is that a productive restriction?
Yeah. And when I was talking to the city planners, I believe they were looking at some sort of space that was kind of by the hospital area, kind of behind the hospital. And the hospital is wanting to expand and stuff, so It's yeah.
The city as a whole wants to expand pretty dramatically eastward.
Yes.
Like they have, and this is, dependent on so many things that the city can't really control because property owners have to elect to join the city essentially and be annexed. But they want to like, the map I saw was basically doubling the size of the city, expanding to the northeast, which is very ambitious. But
well, in terms of the zoning laws, isn't there a Phelps County committee for that? Or I don't know if committee is the right word, but
yeah, there's the Planning and Zoning Commission,
sure,
which they're appointed by the mayor and elected by the council,
right?
And they, like most commissions, they're ultimately just advisory. So like, if they recommend the council approve something, council can just decide not to, or vice versa. But it is still an important commission because, a lot of time council does just go with whatever they recommend.
Yeah. I'm curious if the city planners are working with them right now. I have no idea if they are or not, but I'm curious if they are looking into those concerns that our listeners had about the 3-story, 5-story limit and whatnot.
Yeah. Let's talk a more kind of general philosophical question.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So, it's kind of a speaks to questions of representative democracy as a whole, and that is, what would you do in circumstances where your own personal morals or views are at odds with public opinion, especially the opinion of the people of your ward?
That's a good question. And I think that as potentially the youngest city council member and also a student, I have a responsibility, should I be put in that situation, or should I be elected, to represent not only my ward, but also the student population. And so if I believe that something is going against my morals for that, then I have to stick up for the students as well as the residents that are in Ward 6. And so, yeah, I would stick to my morals, but I guess it would be dependent on the case. So it would be dependent on a lot of things, I guess.
Because I think, like, a good example is something like the question of removing fluoride from the city's drinking water.
Yes.
Where, now we saw public opinion, and especially in Ward 6, public opinion was overwhelmingly in favor of keeping fluoride in the water. But suppose that was, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe that you were also supported continuing water fluoridation.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
But suppose public opinion had been the opposite of that, and we had, 95% of the city who wrote in said to remove it. How do you kind of reconcile what you believe? And it's not really a moral stance. It's just kind of like a logistical, I just think removing fluoride is a bad idea.
Sure.
But my constituents want me to do it.
Yeah, well, I guess in your hypothetical situation, I would be, I'd be kind of having this battle of, well, there's my constituents as well as the people want one thing, and I respect, their choice and whatnot, but I also believe in this, and so I have to kind of, I guess, balance the two, but I don't know, I would be more in favor of doing what the people of my ward are interested in, and I'd be willing to hear their concerns on both sides of it. Personally, I'm in favor of keeping the fluoride in the water. That's not really up for negotiation. That's just kind of something that I personally believe in. I've done the research on it, and as somebody with a biology degree, I can talk about fluoride. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, one of my friends just came and said hi. Yeah, going back to the question, that would be up to a lot of different things, but I would obviously respect the opinion of the people who live in my ward, and not even just in my ward, well, in the city in general, of what they think, and I want to hear their concerns and hear their side of the story, because you should be seeking to understand before being understood. So
yeah. And I don't think water fluoridation is or should be an issue of significance. That it's been dealt with. It's just the hypothetical that came to my mind of something allegedly controversial that the city could have dealt with. Kind of on that note, I know as you've been preparing to run and now running for office, you've been tuning in more to what's going on in city council. Are there any decisions that the city council has made recently that you disagree with, or any I guess takes you have about any of the big issues that council has dealt with?
Yeah, and honestly, compared to when COVID was here, the issues that we're facing right now seem relatively small compared to what's going on over there. And I will be honest, I actually have a class on Monday nights. I have orchestra. Shout out to those in band and orchestra who meet Monday nights 7 to 9:30, which happens to be smack dab in the middle of the city council meeting. So if you haven't seen me there in a hot minute, that's why. I was going to a few over the summer. But I haven't really got an opportunity to sit down in one of them. So what I do is I try to watch the recordings or read, your posts on the summarizations of them. And I think that I don't really have any strong opinions to what's happening right now. And that could be just because I'm focused on the campaign within itself. But
I mean, it's been
pretty laid back, I feel like.
Yeah, city council as a whole has been very non-contentious.
As of late, yeah.
Like I did the math and it was like 95% of all the votes this term have been unanimous, because they're all very, what I would argue was what city government should be doing, which is just very standard, road maintenance and minor adjustments, and not, big showy ordinances.
Fixing potholes and whatnot.
Yeah. Cool. Hey, as a reminder, folks, you're listening to the Weather Report. We're talking with Amelia Markwell, who is running to represent Ward 6 on the Rolla City Council. That is everything north of Bishop Avenue, pretty much. So it includes a lot of all the dorms, Frat Row, Vichy Road, the lodges, all that good stuff. If you have anything you'd like to ask Amelia, please text into 504-656-6735. And let us know what you think. I'm almost out of questions, so I'd love if you could give me some more, listeners. I haven't done many interviews, so I'm still getting the idea of budgeting my time.
Getting used to it.
Yeah.
Well, that's okay. We can still talk about Rolla City life and whatnot.
Yeah.
What's happening right now.
Here's one. So, Ward 6 has the worst voter turnout in the city.
Yes, it does.
Especially for local elections. The past 10 years, the highest turnout for a municipal election was 7.5%.
Yep.
And no city council candidate has gotten more than 100 votes since 2011. Why do you think turnout is so low, and what can be done to improve voter participation?
Yeah, that's not good. Those numbers are not what I want to hear at all. And I think, I'm just going to say the reason why the turnout is so low is most likely because of the students. And I hate to blame the students on that, but they just don't, most of them that live in the dorms don't know that they can register underneath their dorm address. And so I will actually be outside of the Curtis Laws Wilson Library next Thursday registering people to vote. If you're interested, you can come on down. I'll be outside the library tabling with some flyers and whatnot, and we will get you registered to vote if you are not registered already. I believe the deadline is March 11th.
Yes.
To register. But yeah, going back to the question, I don't think that people are, I don't think they realize that they can vote, and then I just also don't know if they know about the elections. If you don't keep up with local politics, how are you going to know? And so a lot of people they stay out of the know. They're focused on other priorities and whatnot. But yeah, I do think that voter turnout and getting people to register is definitely on my high priority list, especially right now. So,
and I think that a lot of time people don't, and students especially, but like I had talked with Mike Dickens, who is also a representative of Ward 6.
Yeah.
You're not running against him. There's two seats.
We love Mike.
We do love Mike, friend of the show, Mike Dickens. And talk about a lot of the people. If you drive, up Vichy Road, or I think it's like the old Wire. I can't remember what's called, the Wire Road or something. It feels like you're out of town. It feels very far away, and that kind of has that attitude of like, in the student case, I'm not a resident of Rolla. I'm a resident of campus, and then why I don't really care about what's going on downtown. I don't see how it affects me.
Yeah.
But a lot of things do, like you had talked about pedestrian safety, and student parking is a big issue that people perpetually wrestle with, and I think people don't really realize there is a local government that does deal with those things. And
yeah, I mean, when we go to register students, one thing that they usually say is, oh, well, I'm actually currently registered in St. Charles or St. Louis or back home in Arkansas or whatever, wherever that may be. And I always tell them, you can switch it. You can switch it back afterwards if you'd like. They usually have their family's home address there. One thing that I believe it was actually Steve that told me this, and he said that one thing that he tells people when they say that is, well, you're using Rolla sidewalks and you're walking on Rolla roads and you're using it, so why would you not, I guess, register to be here in Rolla? Because it directly affects you. And so that's one thing that I hope my residents realize, whether they're students or not, is that you should be voting. If you have the right to vote, you should be voting and you should be utilizing it. So,
and you're paying Rolla taxes.
And you're paying Rolla taxes, exactly. Make your money's worth it.
Yeah, and I mean, something I always tell people, especially in Ward 6, is like, hey, this is, so few people vote. This is the most impact your vote is ever going to have, probably.
Exactly.
Like, if you vote in this election, you're probably going to be, at least 1% of the turnout.
Especially in Ward 6. I mean, when it comes to the students, you had mentioned that in the last, it was since, 2011, I guess, that there was over 100 or something like that. What was the exact statistic?
Yeah, the last candidate who have gotten more than 100 votes was in 2011.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what the ward boundaries were back then.
Sure.
I only have percentage turnouts going back to, 2020.
That was still over 10 years ago. And so I think we can do better. I think we can do better. I think the students can do better. And I think getting them to register to vote is a big part of that.
Yeah. Our listener notes that a great way for students or anyone of voting age to get involved, I guess, is to be an election judge. That is true, yeah. Being election judge does pay. Sorry, forgive our DJs out there being loud. It's the deep state trying to silence me once again. But yeah, being an election judge this is a little tangent, but I'll shill for it. Great way to participate. Help keep your elections fair. It pays. It's pretty good money. And I've done it before. It's an easy job. You just go and hang out with a bunch of sweet old ladies that usually bring brownies. And you help people vote. It's a good time. And you can reach out to the county clerk's office for more info on how to do that.
If you need volunteer hours as well for a certain club or, for graduate school, medical school, etc. I know personally, for medical school and PA school and whatnot, you need those volunteer hours. That's a great way to do it. So, yeah.
Well, cool. Well, we're almost at time. Are there anything else you want to talk about? Anything else you would like the public to know about you? Are there any sorts of priorities that we didn't cover that you wanted to speak to?
We covered a lot today, and we're still relatively early in the election, but I guess the one thing that I'd want to say to students is get out and register to vote. It's really easy. You can go to vote.org to do it. And yeah, I just appreciate any sort of support that my campaign has been getting. You can go to Facebook. I have a Facebook page up right now for the campaign, and if you'd like to donate to that campaign, shameless plug, you can text Donate Markwell. That's all lowercase, one word. Donate Markwell to 888-444-8774 to donate to my campaign. So I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, Colin.
Yeah, absolutely. That was not an endorsement of donating your money to anything.
No.
Again, views expressed in this program are not those of KMNR, UM System, or the Board of Curators. But yeah, people can find you on Facebook, Markwell for Rolla. And Election Day is April 7th. April 7th. And where do folks vote in your ward?
They vote at this is weird. It's the Missouri S&T General Services Building. And it's weird. You never see anybody go in or out of that building, but it's actually behind Frat Row. And I'm sure a lot of the guys that live in Frat Row know exactly what I'm talking about.
It's on Spruce.
Yeah, it's like this skinny road that's kind of off of that roundabout.
Yeah. I have a lot of opinions. I feel like they should move that polling place.
Yeah, it's
personally.
interesting.
It's not easy to walk to. But I don't know anywhere better they could put it other than in TJ or something.
On campus, yeah, but I don't
think anyone would love. If Havener hadn't gotten rid of their parking lot, then they could have Done it in Havener.
I think we should move it to the Smoothie King.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, with when you have like 20 people voting in an election, you probably could.
No, but yeah, if you need the exact address, I think it's 1701 Spruce
1701,
Drive. 1701
I think,
Spruce Drive.
It's the only thing on Spruce Drive.
Yes.
Anyhow, yeah. Well, thank you very much, Amelia, for your time. This is Amelia Markwell for Ward 6 City Council. Election day is April 7th. Our last listener text in says, also, many local elections have been decided by 1, 2, or 3 votes. A few have been tied. That is true. Yeah, we've had some very consequential elections that have gone down to just a couple of votes. And as we've seen over the past couple of years, that can really decide the course of the city. So it is not something to take lightly. But yeah, thanks for tuning in to the Weather Report. Hey, we've got another great interview slated for next week. It's exciting. We've got Kevin Grieven, who is running for mayor of Rolla, who's going to be on the air at 4 p.m. Got a lot of good questions for him. So make sure you don't miss that. The week after that, we are going to have Melissa Gans running for Ward 1 City Council, and the week after that is Lister Florence, who is the other candidate for mayor. So a lot of exciting interviews. But that is the end of this one. So thanks for tuning in to the Weather Report here on KMNR. Thank you to Amelia for your time. If you have anything else you'd like to hear from about her, please reach out. She's on Facebook at Markwell for Rolla. Or Markwell for Ward 6, sorry. And that's all we've got here. So, as always, stay safe and have a great week. See you next Friday.